Okay, welcome everybody to the second East-West Psychology Metamorphosis lecture. The first one is up on our East-West Psychology YouTube channel. It was with Robert McDermott and Debashish Banerjee on Sri Aurobindo and Modern Thought. And we have one coming up on December 15th with Swami Medinanda called Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality, which is a book that he wrote. The subtitle of that is called Spiritual Monism and Pluralism. And so that's a little bit about this lecture series. We have more coming up in the new semester, in the new year as well, but let's leave it at that for now. And I will hand it over to my co-host, Stefan, to introduce our guest for today.
Thank you, Jonathan. You can hear me okay, right? Great. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Silvia Nakkach, a Grammy-nominated composer and recording artist, interdisciplinary vocal artist, educator, author, academic consultant, former clinical psychologist, Hindustani raga musician, practitioner of experimental new music, embodied improvisation, immersive soundscape designs, founding director of the International Vox Mundi School of Sound and the Voice, and the Yoga of the Voice Training Certificate, Kobe, Japan, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, curriculum designer, faculty for the New York Open Center's Integrative Sound Institute, and creator of the CIIS Certificate in Sound, Voice, Music, and Healing, that I had the pleasure, along with my partner Roche, of being program coordinators for under Silvia. And she is currently mentoring students in CIIS's Center for Psychedelic Therapies and Research. Jonathan, did you want to introduce the talk specifically?
Yeah, I just wanted to read before we hand it over to you, Silvia, the abstract, because I think it would just be a nice way to kind of set the territory and the mood of what's gonna be happening tonight. So this is titled Dhvani, Resonance and Quantum Listening. What is your cosmic music? This presentation is an East-West interdisciplinary inquiry into the concept of Dhvani, meaning resonance from which nod or sound arises. We will explore how Dhvani refers to the philosophy of aesthetic suggestion that can also be understood as the essence of poetry and music. Dhvani, as the cosmic canvas of resonance, provides a sonic metaphysics for contemplating the infinite possibilities of becoming through quantum listening, cultivated as a revelatory art. This presentation will include musical meditation to explore the taste, rasa, of the subtle alchemy between sound and imagination. And I also would like to say that, Silvia, you are teaching in the East-West Psychology Department next semester. And so this presentation tonight is a little bit of what students can expect in the class coming up, but I'll hand it over to you. It's so excited to have you here, and enjoy tonight.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It seems like I am in my normal Thursday class. I recognize most of you. Thank you for being here. You know that before I start anything, I'm going to ask Jonathan to play some music, because I need to pick up my tea. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and everybody, and Professor Devashish for inviting me, and all of you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if everybody can hear me well, maybe some people can hear better than others. We cannot. Actually, this Dhvani, one of the meanings of Dhvani, which I've been researching for almost since I don't know so many years. One of the meanings of Dhvani is that I'm fascinated by is how does it sounds to you? How things sounds to you different than what it sounds to me? And then immediately, if you think about that, and I'm sorry, my voice is always a little cracking these days, but something happens when I think about sound and how you are listening to me, especially now that we are becoming hybrid people. Now we are in this virtual reality and we don't understand what we are doing because we think that people are listening. I just was talking with Jim Ryan and I got his laugh. Ha ha. So yes, and I was thinking, yeah, you know, how does it sound to you? I'm sure that it's going to sound a little bit different than what sounds to me, right? And it's so simple to understand that listening is a mysterious event in our life, because I will play some music and I will start in a second with my prayer to open the space, but some people will listen to what I'm saying and some people will listen to the phone that is ringing, and some people, you know, the beauty of diversity is that we listen differently to the same things. But the point in the Dhvani is that there is a point of resonance. There is a point where we are kind of listening. I mean, whatever I'm doing or you are doing is hitting you in some place, and you wake up, and I wake up. And that place is that Dhvani has that quality of resonance, of kind of imagining, suggestive idea that we are listening together, right? Imagine how the world will be re-enchanted if we get to that level of resonance where we start listening to good things together, at the same things that are positive. So that is one of the meanings of Dhvani. Dhvani is aesthetic suggestion, resonance, sound, nada, so many things, how things sound for different people, ways of listening. Dhvani also can mean something that is shruti, the way that the Vedas were transmitted orally. So there's so many meanings that I spent hours and hours reading and had very little time to prepare this piece because I keep reading more and more and more and asking people for every scholar of Sanskrit that I kind of ask what Dhvani is. They say something completely different. So that's good, because art is in this world for to surprise us, to reveal, to shruti us, to wake up ideas that we didn't have before. So saying that I like to start the session. What we are going to do, I think, is first I talk a little bit and I present the topic, and as much as I can within the time we have. And then we are going to have a short dialogue with Jonathan and Stefan, which we love to talk to each other. And as you see, they are, Jonathan is an extraordinary musician, Stefan is an extraordinary listener, and kind of a magic philosopher, and many other things. So, and then after we do this dialogue, just to creative inquiry, we are opening for you to ask some questions if you want to. That's the idea. And how much time do we have to complete? It's an hour and a half or 2 hours?
An hour and a half.
1 hour and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to finish in this world, in this virtual world of California, we finish at 7:30. And in your world, I see so many people from Japan and other places. I don't know your time, but more or less. Let's start with a prayer for light, for purification, for grounding. Tatsaviturvarenyam yotihi parasya dhimai janna satyena dipayet satyena dipayet satyena dipayet. Tatsaviturvarenyam yotihi parasya dhimahi dhyanna satyena dipayete satyena dipayete satyena dipayete. Peace, peace, peace. Rana, na, ra, Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarurpini Vidyam Rambam Karisyame Siddhi Bhavantu Metsa Metsa So I propose that we all relax a little bit, our breath, our posture, our being, and feel at home as you are, comfortable. And I'm going to play a few minutes of my favorite music for you, and we are going to deliver this as a sonic meditation. We call it contemplative listening. Everything that we do has particular names of practices and sadhanas So this is a contemplative listening practice where you just bring all your attention to the sound. And if someone comes in your mind, must be a distraction, you let it be and let it go. So contemplative listening, stay with me. We always do the shishin. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Stay with me. And God bless us for us to play this beautiful piece of music.
তুই রইলি খাঁচার আসে ওরে খাঁচার আসে খাঁচা যে তোর তৈরি খাঁচা বাসে আবার কোন দিন খাঁচা পড়বে খসে লালন ফকির কেঁদে খাঁচার ভিতর পাখি কেমনি যাচ্ছে খাঁচার ভিতর পাখি কেমনি যাচ্ছে তার ধরেতে পারলে মনো তারে ধরতে পারলে মনো বেড়ি বেড়ি দিতাম তাহার পাতার ভিতর পাখি কেমনি যাচ্ছে কেমনি Teta Rana
So, music, sound in time, sound in expansion in space. We resonate differently with completely two forms of music, but they are actually coming from the same place, right? So I wish we can open all the mics and talk about it, but you can write down your ideas about what did you heard, and what did you listen. You see, we're two different traditions. One is the Baul tradition of supposedly street musicians of Bengal, which I had the great honor to have in my to have in my residence for more than a week. I think it was like 3 weeks. Satnam Das Baul with his children, and I kind of enter in that realm of resonance and play music all day long in my balcony, and it was just absolutely wonderful the way that they open to anything. And then the other piece is my present Guruji, Pandit Uday Bawalkar, which every note that he's doing is just like so much connected to the possibility of reaching the infinite Shruti and the divine Shruti, the Nad. So it's interesting. This is North Indian music. One is considered more popular, the other is extremely classical. Dhrupad. Most of you know what Dhrupad music is. If not, we will tell later. But there's something about listening to different musics that made my my own personal life so full of resonance, because we have this particular time frame, and I would like to organize my thoughts with a PowerPoint, because I can go forever telling you stories of how did I get to Dhvani. But first I let you tell you the story, okay? The story is very simple. Finally I got to meet with Professor Debashish Banerjee, and it happened to be here in my new place, and I was just organizing books because I just moved here relatively. And the moment that we were talking about books, one book just fell in my feet. It just fell, and it was the book called Dhvani. And that's when this whole story started, that this is something that could be teachable, that could be expanded. And because I also have, so I call that magical realism, that why this book fell and not another book from, in Spanish or French. I mean, I speak so many languages here, and there are books like 5 languages. But it was just that book about Dhvani. And then I haven't seen it for a long time. And then it opened up this whole panorama and range of possibilities of extending the idea of sound as resonance, and resonance as divine sound. And then I realized that I've been very much embodied with the work of my first mentor, Pauline Oliveros, for so many years, traveling around the world with her, listening. And since she passed away, especially, and during this whole time, I always realized that the only thing that I'm interested in sharing, besides, is how we listen and deep listening. And deep listening became where, you know, quantum listening and cosmic listening, because we extend it. We make it more integral and more inclusive. It's not just sound for or music for. And then the story, besides the story that the book just fell when I met Professor Debashish Banerjee, besides that story, I remember talking to Rocher in a car, and she said, "Oh, I think you should read this other book." And that book gave me another important aspect of Dhvani, which is the one that I really would like to continue in, you know, this infinite creative inquiry with you and everybody and myself, which is, what about if art and what about sound is a way, the way we listen is a way of aesthetic suggestion? What about, instead of saying music for healing, we say, I mean, I don't know if there is music for healing, music for babies, music for something. I never believe in that, and I know why. Because music is in this world as something created by, is art, is suggestive. The music that I play, my mother probably didn't like it, but my dad loved it. And music it's supposed to be the aesthetics of something that is creative expression, supposed to make people feel free first and not impose some kind of aesthetic. Okay, this is beautiful, you have to like it. So Dhvani can take us to that place where for example, Buto, which is one of my favorite arts and dances, which is come from Japan from the 60s, it's not very beautiful, but because it's about death can dance, but I love it. And then there's art that is, you know, that not necessarily is beautiful as the Western idea of aesthetics that says, okay, aesthetics is something that it's a set of principles conceived to understand the nature and the appreciation of beauty. That's the Western dictionary. Well, the Eastern will say something a little bit more extended, and we as modern listeners can even extend it more. So I'm going to go to the PowerPoint, because if not I can talk forever. And I'm going to now share my screen and go to natural. Okay. And share, please. Okay, so cancel, share. Let me see what happened here. It's because I was on the sound. I'm going to choose first. Okay, I'm choosing, and now I'm sharing the screen for you. Basics. It's on I have to be on basics. Okay, I'm here. Okay. So we talk about the Dhvani. We can read more about the Dhvani. We have, I just like to always start with a prayer. And the prayer will help me to ground and to remember this, this idea of Mawaka, that beyond every aesthetics, there is an organic impulse to translate into voice, rhythm, music, and movement, the emotion of being alive, prana. So then this is kind of one of the basic principles of connecting. And resonance has to be with connecting people, connecting sounds. The secret agenda of music, I'm going to go relatively fast. The secret agenda of music was always reach the spiritual in all different kinds of worlds. Awaken one another, whatever the spiritual and the transpersonal means to you, relate the unseen with the visible matter. And this transmission of energy, you know, the secret agenda of music and great music, and also what we call now healing sound, is a transmission of energy between all these aspects and realities and hybrids, cosmos, nature, intellect, magic, consciousness, the secular and the sacredness. So in a way, everything can be different according to our, what I like to say, the way you listen, the way we listen creates our culture. This is a big mantra for me. Culture is created by the way we listen to the world. And we relate to all these aspects of the world. Our main host here at CIIS is the mother and the lineage of Sri Aurobindo. And she says music is essentially a spiritual art. The role of music lies in helping the consciousness to uplift itself toward the spiritual heights. Of course, that's why we become believers. That's why we have John Coltrane. And we have all these different musicians in all the, you know, that don't have the possibility of being famous. Then you have, this was John Coltrane said, my goal is to live the truly religious life and express in my music, if you live it, when you play, there's no problem because the music is part of the whole thing. To be a musician is really something. It goes very, very deep. My music is the spiritual expression of what I am, my faith, my knowledge, my being. And this takes us closer to the topic of today. There is something in music beyond ordinary listening, I promise. And there's something in music beyond ordinary listening. This is the composer that I dedicated many years of my life when I was at Mills College, Oliver Messiaen. I wanted to play and listen to all his music and the music of the birds. And he said, music is far more than attractive sound or pleasant entertainment. It is the means of communicating an idea that is beyond being oral, visual, or literary. And it's the manifestation of a spiritual belief that relates all things through the common denominator of human spirit. Oliver Messiaen was in a concentration camp, and I was only 4 instruments there, and he wrote the most incredible music called the Quartet of the End of Times that I highly recommend for you to listen. He died in 1992. He went to all over the world to listen to the birds, and I fell in love with his bird music because I sing because I love the birds. So I start playing his chords, his color chords, his harmonies. That's very, very messianic actually. Many people think that is dissonant, but for me it's awakening. So yes, that is Messiaen, Oliver Messiaen, French. We went to America, we went to the mother, which is French Egyptian, and the Mawakas, which is African. They all believe that music, there's something in music beyond ordinary listening. Also Milarepa, which you can see here. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, so my Sanskrit, I'm innocent. I asked for permission. Shravana, I love Shravana, extended deep listening as the Vedic access to the divine Shruti. So I'm thinking about the possibility of extending this idea of Shravana, like listening, but yet going back to the idea of the Vedas, which was all oral tradition. And they call it the Shrutis, the way that they were from the mouth to the ear to the heart. And all the musics that I've been studying for 40 years and trying to perform and record and all that music is oral tradition. So if you listen, you listen. If you hear, you might miss the music, because there's so much to hear. The voluntary selective nature of listening as an aesthetic of attentiveness, creativity, and quantum listening. What is quantum listening? What is cosmic listening? Tuning in as many ways as possible to more than one reality simultaneously, like what we are doing here today, including the suggestion to notice when you are not listening. So we enter in this aesthetics of our attention. We almost get into the aesthetics of consciousness. So Dhvani, how does this sound to you? Meaning, resonance, the core matrix for which nad and nada sounds arise, relates to the act of aesthetic suggestion. Again, underlines poetry and forms of creative expression. All forms, like music, poetry, architecture. I extended, as we say, as new music, we extended we bring it, we bring this holiness, this possibility into all creative expressions, the idea of aesthetic suggestion. And of course, it's a way to free in the imagination of the listener, and hopefully as a dedication, cultivating a spiritual aspiration. In the Dzogchen tradition, which is a Buddhist tradition, very ancient, they say the mantra is feel free first. And it's something that for me is part of the music, is part of the sound. Feel free first. So it's interesting when we are hearing something, if you are free, you can have your own emotional experience. John Cage, we say to us that music is not in this world. John Cage was an extraordinary composer and musician from United States, and he was also a Zen master, and also he collect mushrooms, whatever that name is, of serious mushroom scholar. And John Cage said one thing that I met him at Mills, and he said something I never forgot. Music is not in this world to express emotions. And I love it. And I say, yes. And it took me a long time to understand that music is there to resonate with. But the emotion is your own state of mind. Is your own. Is you own your own emotions. We don't want to to wash your brain about the music that this music is good, or this music or this sound is good, or oh yes, I'm going to play this incredible ball, crystal ball, and you have to like it. So then I run into this amazing book, which I can share with everybody, especially those that are taking the class for next year. Dhvani Loka by Ananda Vardhana, with the commentary of Lochana. The commentary is called Lochana, which is a light over that, by Abhinav Gupta, which is a friend of mine from a long time, that They are from the very, very, very ancient, not so ancient, but the thousands before and after the current era. And they were, I would say, they were commenting and philosophers of the aesthetics of Indian classical arts and Indian arts in general. So in that tradition of aesthetics that became so important for me, and I will tell you in a minute why, essential for my experience as a musician and as an educator. So they talk about the aesthetic suggestion and how that can open ourselves to liberation and transformation and the divine, to grow divine. And this is something that I like to share with you because I found this when long time ago, and it's kind of this in the same tradition. What is art according to the Vedic tradition? Art was cast into this world by superior beings intending to clothe the truth and to attract to it by artifice our spirits, which had become incapable of loving it in the nude. Art through emotion seeks to animate the entire being. So I prefer to think about this idea of aesthetics because it leads to liberation, it leads to to cultivation of aspiration and possibilities. So resonance has to be with sound, and originally resonance has to be with resonare, from the Latin resonare, resound. It doesn't belong to a particular discipline, but was definitely taken by natural science. Physics. In physics is transmission of energy from one particle that oscillates to another one. It's a frequency transmission. I like the idea of transmission of energy that has become sympathetic. In humanities has become part of the metaphor, the metamorphology. Tracing Western narratives and contexts, resonance enters the modern discourse at the exact moment, listen, when the theory of music started being conceived as both in the interaction of a source of pleasure and aesthetic judgment and suggestion, and the scientific inquiry into the natural causes of such a pleasure. Resonance was the key factor mediating between these discourses. So there's so much to think about Dhvani as the cosmic canvas that provides sonic metaphysics for contemplating and experiencing the infinite possibilities of sound. But beyond sound, which is everything, because permeates is vibration and vibration permeates everything, it's really about embodiment and listening. And we can extend that to seeing. I mean, listening, when it's so profound, so quantumly, we become what we are listening. There's no more, it's kind of a non-dual experience. We become what we are listening. When I listen to my guru, I become. I forget all my problems. There are no more limitations. So there is a kind of familiarity involved. So sound is vibration and is perceived as both something very material, very, very. It's a lot of physics of sound, acoustics of sound, but also sound is poetry, because everybody will say something different about sounds. Metaphor for sounds abounds and extend to the physical, the philosophical, technical, medicine, sound healing, cultural context. So I like to say that sound resides in the feedback loop of materiality, the physicality, the acoustics, the psychoacoustics of sound, and the metaphor. All the metaphors of resonance, all the suggestive metaphors of resonance. Also, I think that it's important for me, and I'd like to share with you that sound lives in a space. Sound is a is the creator of everything, but also needs a space to be manifested. So there is a relationship, there is a feedback loop here too, between sound and space. How we use the sound, how we implement sounds in a space, which is where when we learn a lot when we do the raga music, how we use the space. When we do improvisation, how we use the space that we have. Playing all the notes together, or just consider tone magic, consider silence. So sound is all creation, senses, ether is the more subtle of the elements. That's why it's so powerful and so pervading. Sounds is also structures like music, rhythms. It's resonance. The word resonance is also belongs to acoustics. And sound is also aural architecture, which is something that we are going to hopefully have a lot of time to explore more and more, the places that we live and how they sound. So these are all I thought that sound is an influencer in a way, to use a modern world, in all these different levels that you can read here. From digital technology to environmental, to magical will, psychology, consciousness, memory, attention, molecular medicine. And as matter, also sound involves transmission, feeling, listening, hearing, spatial orientation, communication. And that takes us more and more to the world of resonance. And so I like to get directly now into the poetics of sound and how resonance animates the most relevant aspects of the experience of sound and listening, which is how we can contemplate through sound. Sound becomes like the gateway, the portal for relationality, potentiality, and transcendence. So this is the key of the power of sound. And then it has all these different layers, from sound that we can hear, from sound that we can feel, from sound that we can imagine, and from sound that happens in dreams. There is something that takes us directly to the nad and the nada yoga. The nad is that sound that I would say nad is both the beginning of all sounds and all manifestations. And in the realm of consciousness, nad or nada is the vibratory frequency rate of silence. We only hear the nad when we don't hear it, when we are listening, and when we are inspired, and when we are in love, and when something is suggest beauty or transformation. That there is a whole sorry there's a whole I would say spiritual science of nad, and it's the nada yoga, which is a path for those who, through worshiping, through bhakti and sadhana, travel to the subtleties of sound, into the subtle and the gross experience of sound, the practice of deepening consciousness through meditations with sound. We become more familiar with the formless beauty of chanting and sacred sound. And slowly, as much as we get into Nada yoga, give us the means, the path. Is the Nada Yoga will be the source. The path are all the practices and the sadhanas that help us to connect directly with life energy, life force, prana. Prana is not oxygen. Prana is when we bring, is the life force, becomes the life force, and breath when we bring attention to it. So Nada Yoga becomes something that takes us directly to the possibility of resonate with infinite, divine, cosmic sounds. It's like the methodology, the way, the path. And requires the mind to be only focused on and in the dimension of sound, becoming free from feelings. Music is not in this word just to give us feelings, thoughts and wantings. So moving slowly and fast. I love the idea of sound because it takes me to help me to enhance me and my students and my people and my life, enhancing the sensibility of the subtle, and can help us to be more subtle in terms of connecting with others, and might help us, particular sounds, particular chanting, particular ways of experiencing Nada Yogas can help us to cultivate familiarity with deep listening. So deep listening as a philosophy, actually, is another source that distinguishes the difference between the involuntary nature of hearing and the voluntary selective nature of listening. So the result is an evolving practice that cultivates appreciation of sounds on a heightened level, expanding the potential for connection, interaction with all the things that we interact these days, environment, technology, performance. Deep listening takes us directly to becoming cosmic resonators. So this is Pauline Oliveros at Mills in the 70s when she discovered the Moog synthesizer, and she was very much into technology. And toward the end of her life, on Thanksgiving 2016, she passed away sleeping. Pauline started practicing deep listening with the intention of aspiration of healing humanity, almost as a, I would say, as an act. She was going to all those places where there were wars, and well, she was an activist of listening. So here I am with her. It was my last time I saw her, and she has all kind of ideas about listening and how listening can go in all directions. And we get to quantum listening, and this is what she wrote just before she passed away on 2016. Quantum listening is a manifesto for listening as activism. It's listening to listening in order to attune to our bodies, the earth, and one another in an increasingly loud and noisy world. Is the foundation for a radically transformed social matrix in which compassion and love are the core motivating principles to guide creative decision making and making our actions in the world. So what happened if we think about, I was thinking, well, how do I listen? How can I how can I create the yoga of listening, the yoga of contemplative listening, in behalf of the intelligent, of the unseen, using sound in yoga and to elevate the human potential and sciences and practices and become more subtle listeners, to collaborate more with each other and to resonate, allowing for suggestion and not imposing what to like and what not to like. And detachment from matter and mundane poverties of the ego, as they say in the yogas, towards growing divine, sensing the pulsing subtleties of Nad. So that takes us finally to rasa. And I will take 1 minute to talk about rasa, because there's something about this harmonic space of rasa that could be a whole new way of listening to the world. So I'm back to you, right? So rasa is there have many different definitions, and I have just 5 minutes to talk about rasa, which I wrote many things and many books about it, chapters in books. Rasa, for me, I stay with the idea of aesthetic emotion. It's an emotion that comes with the capacity of listening in music or eating in food. Eating the food, this taste. Rasa is something like it's like essence of creative expression of all kinds. Before I close this part of the kind of lecture that I'm doing, I'd like to show you some suggestive ideas about rasa. And for that, I will have to show you something. And okay, so rasas are, I'm going to go back to you in a minute. So rasas are juice. The rasa is a juice, it's nectar, it's essence. It's where musicians or any artist is talking about when he's talking about some kind of conveying, suggesting some kind of pleasure or a state of mind. But rasa comes together with something that we call bhava, which is the state. Let's define rasa as a state of heightened delight, bliss, that can be experienced only by the spirit, according to Abhinavagupta, the taste of the mind. Can be perceived as a sentiment and sharing a feeling and suddenly understanding the essence of a work of art or food. My favorite definition of rasa by Abhinavagupta is being intoxicated by the state of a spiritual autonomy, a state that tends to liberation of all even emotions, an alchemical transmission, access to universal and liberating emotions. Rasa and bhava are central concepts in classical Indian aesthetics and poetics. Are said to go together like mood and feeling, or spices and vegetables in a dish, or the seeds and the flowers of a tree. In modern times, rasa is more sensory and bhava more emotional. Quite a very interesting movement. Rasa is more sensory and bhava is more emotional. Rasa is more fleeting, like a taste, it's moving. it's moves the heart or something. It's moving, it's fleeting, it's flowing. And bhava is more like lasting, the lasting sense and state of that feeling. In Bharata's Natya Sastra, which is the book where rasa is being explored and you know, described in detail. It's a dance in dance and theater. In the Natya Sastra, it's a treatise on classical Indian drama and dance. There are descriptions of the 9 different rasas, and they are associated with bhavas and determinants, and situations that evoke them, those, and how they are expressed in facial expressions and gesture in the dance dramas. Also, rasa is the theory of rasa. It's also connected with a transcendent experience associated with passionate mystical devotion. Sometimes people are talking of the mystical experience, the transforming. There is a transmission of a spiritual kind, and so it's it's also, I like to say sometimes in particular context, rasa is like the goosebumps. It doesn't last too long, but you didn't expect it, and you didn't have the intention of it. So passionate mystical devotion. So rasa has been translated as mood or taste, but also essential. In Indian alchemy, rasa means essence of a chemical substance, usually mercury, which is the key alchemical metaphor of awareness. Also in alchemy, they call it rasayana, the way of rasa, the essence path. And Bharata would say that without rasa, there no purpose is fulfilled. So just to complete, I'd like to give you this particular movement of rasa. There's many different ones. And so the Shringar, you can see it, erotic, the bhava is erotic attraction, beauty. There's all these suggestive aesthetics. Hasya, Karuna, Rudra, Vira, Bhayanaka, Vibhatsa, Adbhuta, Santa, Shanti. And they have the determinants, and they have the way that bhava is expressed in the, especially in the dance theater. Our professor, Debashish Banerjee, in one of his books, he has these beautiful definitions of the very similar, but in his own words, the 8 rasas or 9 rasas, and then they're very much in the music of in film music, especially when we talk about music. And there's something about rasa that that happens. There's no rasa without the rasika, which is the person, the one that receives the rasa and becomes. So rasa also help us to, I think it's in sound specifically, and music is a kind of intelligence that help us to discern and find great satisfaction in aesthetic contemplation. The music that I played before, and many of the music that we hear and the way that we sing together conveys that sense of I don't know what are you going to listen, but I need to feel it. I need to feel my om. I need to feel my chant. So we accompany, we create what I call, and I share with my students, like a sound environment, like it's like a ground, like some kind of a space for the beauty or the possibility or the suggestive aesthetic of sound can abide. So remember, sound is subtle, resonance is subtle, it's all about relationship and hopefully transcendence. There's more rasas than the 9 and the 10 rasas. My teacher, my great guru, which I've been with him for 30 years, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Kansab, he had, I tell you the little story to complete. Kansab, I had the honor to have a very, very good relationship with him. I was working in his house, and they were playing Chandrananda, which is a raga that actually he composed for many, many years. Ra ya ra ra na ra na ra na Go forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And I didn't have a drone, so that was incredible. But the point is, I asked Baba, we were in a kitchen of his house. He go, Kansa, or I call him Baba, what is the mood of this raga? What is the mood of this raga? When I was with him, I was speaking like an Indian person. What is the mood of this raga? And he looked at me. He was with his white t-shirt and you know, very comfortable, sitting in a little thing. I was cutting some food, and he said, "What do you think? What do you feel?" I don't know. It's so beautiful. What do you feel? What do you think? So there is a little bit of thinking in rasa too, you know. There is a connoisseur kind of energy. I start speaking French in a minute. But the whole point is like, I start saying, well, it's very devotional, it's very longing, it's very, and then, yeah, I feel devotion, I feel longing, I feel a little bit erotic, you know, like Shringar, like this beautiful sculpture that someone gave me. Yes, I feel so many things. And then he said, well, if you don't feel anything, that's where Chandrananda happens. It's about Tyaga. So it was another, it's not in the books. He comes from oral tradition. Tyaga is the rasa of detachment, allowing for absolute suggestion and inspiration, and not trying to grasp it. Renunciation, detachment, tyaga. And that's I like to say that in many of the musics of the ragas and listening and resonance, the point of detachment is the point of encounter. I think this is a good place to stop. Me. Jonathan, you're the boss.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. A wonderful presentation. There's so much there, and I think that a semester still wouldn't do justice to really go deep in all of the avenues, all the petals that you've opened up in your talk. So thank you so much for bringing in your like a whole life of experience and wisdom into that talk.
I
think
couldn't show the pictures. I have the pictures of the ragas and the different energies, but I didn't have the time. But I wanted to show a picture of a modern picture of Raudra and an ancient picture of Raudra, and see how they're completely different because they allow for aesthetic suggestion. So tell me
right.
something.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean the the theory and like the shastra, I guess, and the culture of raga music is very, very deep, and it goes back, so many hundreds of years in its modern type of history, but even beyond that, in the scriptures, and it's a fascinating, a lifelong study for sure. Um, I guess the one thing that I'd love to ask you about, being in myself, and you teaching in East-West psychology, this East-West kind of axis is interdisciplinarity that your life, you embody, that you are engaging in your life. And I think it was beautiful to be kind of taken on this journey, which was kind of hopping between different cultures, East and West. You're going from Messiaen, you're Ali Akbar Khan, and it's a weaving, and I guess the way that I have learned to understand that in my own life has been that I found myself kind of creating a genealogy of sound. I'm kind of piecing together musical artists or musical cultures that resonate with me, that really like kind of open me in a way that I can't describe. Like one of the rasas, for instance, and Debashish also speaks about how this is really one of the most important rasas, but adbhuta, which you could say is wonder. But that idea of like that rupture where you're not even sure what it is you're feeling. There's just this bliss and wonder of like something, like it's almost like my senses have exploded, and it's an intensity that you could just be in forever. And for me, my genealogy, which is it's in some ways similar to yours, but very different too. We're very different people. But John Coltrane and somebody else you mentioned in our podcast chat, like Don Cherry, some of these jazz musicians who were looking to the East, and I found myself taken on this journey. Which, anyway, what I'm trying to say is how do we reconcile some of the radical differences between these cultures? And do we need to? And I'm just, in your life, like, how is it, from your genealogy of music and experience, Paulina Oliveros compared to somebody like Ali Akbar Khan, it's like they're starting in different places, and sometimes they're ending in different places too. But just, could you talk a little bit about that, and how the different musics have different histories, and so in your life, how you're weaving those kind of things together? That would just be a main question.
I love it. I love your question, and I love your music, the topic of your dissertation. In terms of being a music nomad, and I mean, I can't even pronounce all the words that you and the Bashish are creating, but I will. That there's something about. I mean, I chant better than talk, but. There's something that, okay, I'm telling you a story because I see so many people I love here, and I know. For me, music, for me, it has to be different colors. Last week, we have the passing of Gal Costa. And Gal Costa for me was, we look very similar, and people would stop me in the street thinking that I was Gal Costa, and we were singing. I mean, and when I spent 2 days listening to her music and crying. And today, when I played 1 minute of my guru, I really grounded there. And then I played the bauls, and that I got married with that music. And then it's like saying the music is like the rainbow for me. It has to be diverse. It has to suggest different moods. It has to be modern. When I vote for the Grammys, I choose all the modern music. I don't choose the new age music. I choose the modern music, to tell the truth. I have to, because I was there. But what I'm trying to say is I listen to modern music, and it's incredible how much it animates myself. Music that most people would think is dissonant. This thing. That for me is pacifying. If I repeat it and I become familiar, it's giving me a yoga mat to extend my mind, my mentality. So I love, but I also grew up in many cultures. My family is French. My two parents spoke French, and I grew up in South America and Italy, and I came here 40 years ago, and I live in Africa, and I live in Spain, and go to India every year if I can. So I don't know, all those places have different musics. But guess what? It depends how you resonate. That's why Dhvani was an awakening of consciousness for me, because we need to resonate with things that are familiar and make us feel this particular rasa, this particular mood at this particular time. And then if we listen again, like Arvo Part, I listen to Arvo Part when I need to rest. And I listen to John Coltrane when I need to feel like movement, right? So I want for everybody in the world, if I could, to have that kind of possibility, potential. I think it's potentiality and transcendence. I'm not there when I'm listening.
Right. So pursuing music, engaging with music and really asking what it does and how does it activate you, and what kind of world does it allow you to enter into. And in that sense, that's how I'm understanding kind of transcendence, is that you enter into that world, and it's related to the world you are in, but it's also an extension of it. It's also giving you another place to observe the world that you are in from it's giving you a difference between worlds, and then therefore the possibility to transform the world that you are in. And I think that was also what I'm hearing in how you're speaking about music, how music can really create a world, how it has created a world in the past, and then how you engage with it to do that into the future.
We are extending. Today when I was thinking about this particular event, the word that came to me, the keyword was extension. And I said, why? Then I talked to my friend, Professor Jim Ryan. I said, why I'm thinking about extending everything. It's like I want to extend the idea of jazz into raga and raga into jazz, right? We can do that because there is improvisation. But improvisation and whatever we are feeling, it doesn't happen unless there is some people that are listening to it. Is the Rasika, is the connoisseur, is that kind of radical transmission that we are doing, that is alchemy, because that person feels transformed, right? So that's what I feel. I feel like for me, music is in this world to quiet the mind, to make it sensitive, to listen. That's my first time I say this. It's a definition of music today, whatever day is today. And I might change the definition tomorrow. I suggest the definition of music because music is so big.
That's beautiful, Silvia. I keep coming back throughout your talk. I kept coming back to the quote from John Coltrane. My goal is to live a truly religious life, and how listening is an integral component of that. Maybe the most essential. I was thinking actually when you first said that, you were talking about having to make space, right? You're talking about in order for sound to exist, there has to be space. And in in the creation myth from the Bible, in Judaism, especially from the Kabbalah, there's this idea of in Kabbalah they call it the Tzimtzum. There's this way in which God actually God is everything, the totality. Nothing can exist except that, and has to create a space. And within that space, he breathes the very first word, which is light, so that things can come into existence. So this is really beautiful. This idea of listening as
Hola,
living
Jenny, ¿cómo van?
Lucia, you have to, sorry.
Yeah, listening as living a truly religious life. And I'm wondering if maybe you could speak about that a little bit more.
I think that this could be a whole class for 15 weeks. Listening is to live a religious life, because this can help us to reconciliation, resonate again, become non-dual with the possibility of religion, because religion come from the Latin put things together. Religion. And religion has this quality of legato, something that like the waves of the ocean and the waves of music. So we could take all the strangeness that they put in the word religion when we listen to someone that gave his life to music, like John Coltrane. And I had the great honor to translate many of his solos into ragas as part of my work at Mills College with Anthony Braxton.
Wow.
So where is the raga, right? So, and he knew about the raga, because the ragas is an encounter. At some point in your life, you want to feel melodies as entities.
Yeah. So in a way, I mean, it seems what you're talking about, listening is an activity that exists in the space between the listener and that which is being listened to. So it's a divine activity.
Yeah.
It's what binds us together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by listening, we extend consciousness. We actually listening is a muscle. It works like a muscle to give us more memory, more attention. Listening is a way to reinforce, to empower our attention. And attention comes from a different place, right? But attention and listening, it's the same gestalt.
Right.
So the more we listen, the more attentiveness, the more capacity for be attentive to other things, right. Other realms of textures of reality. So listening is. I mean, I was talking today with Jim. Like, maybe I like to figure out, a yoga of listening. Extending the concept of listening in Sanskrit, which is a beautiful word.
Right.
I don't know if we have time for anybody to ask any, question, or we are over time, Jonathan.
Oh, I mean, we are flexible. We can improvise, and it looks like there are so many, yeah. So if anybody needs to leave, then please, by all means. We have kind of got an hour and a half booked for this, but yeah, we have lots of attentive listeners, and we definitely want to hear some questions from people. And we can go a little bit over, if that's okay with you, Silvia.
Yes. I would like to. I'm very interactive when I do this hybrid experiences and virtual reality, as I call the Zoom. So I want people to be animated, and if you want to say something, will be wonderful for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
Let's do that. And if you have a question, and you can type that in the chat, and maybe Stefan could help convey those. And otherwise, you can raise your hand in the reactions part of the bar at the bottom. And we have Todi already, who is one of the students in EWP and a beautiful singer as well. And so,
Wow.
if you want to ask a question, Todi.
Hello, Silvia. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. This you were talking about voice being part of that nada, and I wanted to ask, how do you see the interaction between speech and nada? Because voice is something which is like, when you compare sound and voice has the ability to use speech and language on top of the language of music that is already happening. So how do you see that interaction
Between voice and nad?
Speech and nad, yes, and
Speech
voice.
and nad. Speech, vak. I did, Tori, I love, Tori, you are a raga, you know that, right?
I know, yeah.
I was just ready for the raga. Okay.
I would have been Yaman if I was a boy, so.
So, well, if in my experience, talking about Baba and being something, being the feeling, extending the feeling, for me, voice is sound and is energy, and it's something abstract. My whole work, and it's in this book that I had just to buy my own book in Amazon today because my other book broke. So in my book, I always say voice is one of is energy, is one of the doors of liberation, and a speech comes from the same experience of sounding with this instrument, but at the same time it has a different aspiration. So I completely despersonalize the voice from whoever is using it, because I think the voice is art. It has the capacity to be a sculpture. And I always feel, and my students know, I do like this. I feel like I'm a sculpture in the voice. But the speech it has more like a different kind of geometry.
This might be related. I got a question in the chat asking if you could talk for a minute about listening music and the state of joy. So I think that might fit nicely with what you were just saying.
The state of joy, Hasya, joy, celebration, the state of joy. It's necessary. It's from a sound and a neuroscience point of view, joy is supposed to be the most healing bhava. So from that level of neuroscience and brain and memory, the memory of joy liberates us from depression and anxieties of all kinds. So that's one layer. Sound is multi-layer. So the music in relationship to joy is relative, because some people will feel joy with some music and not joy with another music. But when you say that, when you ask me that question, who was asking that question? I don't see, but anyway.
This is Tricia. Are you still with us?
I don't know where she is, but anyway. The point here is that my friend, my wonderful friend that I had incredible amount of talking after hours, we were talking about things like this. Stephen Goodman, which I like to bring it to the field today. He talks about the frequency of joy, the frequency of joy and the frequency of enjoyment as something that we can bring into the field of relationship and aesthetic the aesthetics of resonance, the suggestive aesthetic of resonance. So that's what I could say. You know, joy is something that is necessary, but sometimes sadness is a way to clear the space to feel joy. It's suggestive.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. That was beautiful. That will definitely resonate with I'm sure all of us for many days and weeks to come.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's so cool to talk to you. So nice. It's you know, you have the power of the beautiful you know, this incredible revelatory art of creating divine words. Well, thank you, Stefan, for being there always.
Thanks,
Yes,
Stefan.
thank you, Sylvia. It was lovely to spend the evening with you. You too, Jonathan.
Yeah,
as always.
You too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
From everywhere, from Japan. Akiko and Bina just arrived from India and Australia. I see people from everywhere. Thank you, Akiko-san. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Beautiful. Quite a global resonance.
Global resonance, quantum listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
So we leave with we stay with the vibe of Bhairavi, and thank you so much for your participation, being here.